People, here it is. It's your lucky day. Everything in your life has led you up until this moment. Today, I am pleased to bring you perhaps the best piece of content that will ever be made in the world, combining two things that are on their own already amazing and great, but today they will combine into something even better than the sum of the parts, which is the 2000s movie tier list, but not the good ones. We're here to talk about the great ones, which is the bad ones, right? The movies that are so bad, they're good from the 2000s. So you're going to combine 2000s culture, which is great, and my tier lists, which are amazing, better than great, into one thing. That is what we're going to talk about today. Get your whale tail counter ready. That's right. I have a confession to make. I did not specifically choose any of these films because they included whale tail, but I hope that they did. This is before every movie was a Marvel movie. Back when they still made original movies. Before everything was a reboot or Marvel. Remember that? Remember that? Remember when they actually made movies that you hadn't seen before? Remember when they made movies that were things other than reboots, sequels, and Marvel? Remember that? What a time to be alive. We'll start with an iconic film from the 2000s. Remember, these are not movies, people. These are not movies. These are films. Movies are for children. Films are for art appreciators. First up, we have the classic, The Fast and the Furious. The very first one, before it became the global juggernaut of pop culture that it is today. Back then, it was just a simple story about a guy who lives his life a quarter mile at a time. A guy whose whole life can be summed up into one word: family. My favorite part about this, I don't know if you've watched it recently, but this scene here where they're robbing the trucking convoy. Do you remember what they're stealing at the beginning? Like the big heist at the beginning where they're like going to rob the truck? It's a shipment of DVD players. DVD players. That's right. Guys, we're going to get rich. I got a tip. There's a big shipment of DVD players coming into the port today. We're going to steal them. This is before they were like jumping the cars between 24-story buildings and all that stuff. You know, respect to the later movies. Do it fast. That's my motto. Girls, if you want to sign up for the best 45 seconds of your life, right here, baby, right here. This is when they kept things a little bit more grounded. Respect to the later movies, but their big stunt in this one was it's like, give them the NOS. So they'd press the button, you know, with the nitrous, and they would go fast. That was like the big move. We didn't have Ludacris, we had Ja Rule. This also reminds me, this is like the very end of like import tuner culture, when having like a bright green Integra with like the ground effects lights. That was like the very end of like import tuner culture. Back when if you wanted to be cool, you had to have the neon green Integra. I miss it. To this day, I have owned Acuras for 15 years, specifically because I grew up on the West Coast when it was cool to have those cars, when the Integra was a cool car when I was a kid. And to this day, I still drive an Acura for that reason. So this movie, their marketing worked on me. It did. It worked on me because I saw this car here and I said, you know, when I'm in my 40s, 20 years later, I still want one of those cars. If the lines must be crossed, we'll cross them. That's what Vin Diesel said. I'm going to say Fast and Furious, not quite good enough to be S tier, but I'm going to put it on the A tier. Specifically because the opening scene it inspired me. Like my dream from that day on became to get rich stealing a shipment of DVD players. Ever since then, that's all I ever wanted. To this day, I'm plotting. Somehow, I'm going to find a shipment of DVD players. That's how I'm going to get rich. Okay, next up. The only reason that I put The Fast and the Furious on the A tier is because although the film is great, remember, these aren't movies, these are films. Films are art for adults, and these are all art for adults. The only thing that could have made that movie better is if it had Jason Statham in it, driving fast and punching people. Some of the later movies did have Jason Statham driving fast and punching people in them. But if you're a fan of Jason Statham driving fast and punching people, this film, Crank, The best. Nobody will ever do Jason Statham driving fast and punching people better than this movie.
My name is Chev Chelios.
Chev Chelios.
Today is the day that I die.
Jason Statham.
I've been poisoned with some kind of Chinese synthetic. You got to do something for me, Doc.
If you stop, you die.
The plot of this movie is that he gets poisoned, and the only way to keep the poison from spreading throughout his body is that he has to keep his adrenaline pumping. So he has to go through the whole movie just doing dumb shit, like he shocks himself with the defibrillator here. He like fucks some girl in the middle of the street. Like he'll feel his heart slowing down. He's like, oh shit, my heart's slowing down. I'm going to die. Looks around like, oh fuck, and just jumps out the window into the street. So the entire premise of the movie is that he has to keep doing dumb, reckless shit in order to stay alive. And that is exactly what he does. Like if you imagine if Saints Row 3 was a movie, it would be this. Not as many dildos as Saints Row 3, unfortunately. I would have liked more dildo related content in this, but if you liked Saints Row 3, then you will love Crank. I would highly recommend it. There's also a sequel, which is very good. I liked the first one better, but they're both great. Either way, you can't go wrong. Fantastic film. I'm a big fan of Jason Statham driving fast, punching people. Exactly. They delivered exactly what was advertised. You can't be mad at it. That's what they did. They told you what they were going to give you. They gave it to you. You can't be mad about that. So I would say, I know it's not exactly the same thing, but to me, I almost feel like it's in the same vein as the Fast and Furious, but it's more ridiculous because it doesn't take itself seriously at all. Again, it's like a Saints Row game. So I would say it's S tier. If I was going to choose which one I wanted to watch, I would choose Crank. It's great. Next up, we have Charlie's Angels, the remake. As you guys may know, Charlie's Angels is a remake of a 1970s show featuring 3 hot chicks who work for this guy named Charlie, and he sends them on missions around the world to go be cool hot chicks getting in fights. Kind of like if you guys ever played Final Fantasy X-2. Basically, Final Fantasy X-2 is Charlie's Angels in the Final Fantasy universe. I would say, this is one of these movies where I had high hopes because I'm a big fan of Cameron Diaz, and it had a ridiculous premise. It felt like it was going to be, I think, a little bit better than it actually ended up being. It's not terrible by any means, but it's not great. It's not great. That's right. Hot chicks can kick butt too. I feel like if I was like a 9-year-old girl when this came out, I would probably think this was great. Like I could imagine 5th grade girls back then being like, oh, wow, they're so cool. They're pretty girls and they can kick butt. I feel like I probably would have liked it if I was like a 9-year-old girl, but I was not a 9-year-old girl. I was an adult. It's a fine movie. It's fine, but it's not great. You could do worse. You guys remember when like Stars and like USA, when you couldn't just watch anything you wanted on demand? A movie like this would be on cable TV on a Saturday afternoon, and you'd be like, yeah, why not? I'll watch it. I feel like Charlie's Angels is exactly one of those kind of movies. Or if you're like homesick from school, I think C tier is a fair place for it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I don't think it's great. Yeah, Tubi type movies, exactly. That is definitely a Tubi type movie. Here's a movie that I actually never saw back in the day. I just watched this recently. Saw, back in 2004, the beginning of the torture porn genre. I'm sure you guys all know the premise, but if you don't, there's this, insane serial killer named Jigsaw that locks people up in all these crazy puzzles. Yeah, I want to play a game. He locks them up in all these crazy puzzles where in order to get out of the trap that he set for them, they have to do something horrible, to get out of the trap, you have to cut your foot off or, something like that. And it was a cool premise at the time. I never saw it at the time. I only watched it recently. I watched it like a couple weeks ago. I couldn't finish it. It's bad. It's not good. It's not good. It's really bad. It's corny. Like it feels like student work, and not in a cool way. It actually feels like crappy student work. Influential, maybe so, but it's not good. Like I don't know why film students and people like that are always so drawn to making horror movies. Just something about horror movies appeals to these kind of like dorky guys in their like early to mid 20s. I don't get it. I think it's bad. Cheaper than most genres, yeah, but like a comedy, you could make a comedy or a drama that takes place in an apartment for even less money than a horror movie. So I don't buy it. I think there's something about nerdy white men just love horror. That's what I think it is. Yeah, it has a built-in market of other nerdy white men. That's what it is. Horror movies, pro wrestling, metal, comic books, all things that fall very squarely under the heading of things that nerdy white men like. That's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway, where would I put this? I think this movie sucks, to be honest with you. I don't like torture porn as a genre. I think the movie itself is kind of crappy. It's not good. I'd put it on the F tier. It's not good. It's bad. It's a bad movie. Hot girl repellent. That's true. Unless she is a crazy girl with a septum ring and neck tattoo that does astrology and hates her dad, in which case she probably loves horror movies and she will also ruin your life. Next up, we have one of the most insufferable movies of all time, 500 Days of Summer. I don't know what this movie is even about. I saw it when it came out. I don't remember. Isn't he like a bird watcher or some weird shit like that? I don't even remember. One of the most insufferable movies of all time. The reason being that this is from the mid-2000s, which was sort of the birth of everything awful about like this sort of like, I'll just call it like insufferable, like indie hipster kind of culture was really put on the mainstream in this time. Girls with bangs, low testosterone, skinny white guys wearing sweater vests and stuff. All this stuff. It's so many tropes. Garden State was another part of it. 500 Days of Summer and Seth Cohen from the OC were all a part of this awful, awful moment in culture. And if you haven't seen it, just watch this scene and it will tell you everything about how just absolutely unbearable this movie is. All you need to see is this part right here.
Smith? I love the Smiths.
Sorry?
I said I love the Smiths.
By the way, if a girl ever says that sentence to you, people, run. Run. Don't walk. Run away. If a girl, especially a girl with bangs, says that she loves the Smiths, slam the door right in her face and run away. Drop whatever you're doing and run. How can you run away in an elevator? Find a way. It doesn't matter. Gnaw your own hand off. Do whatever you have to do. Just run.
You've good taste in music.
You have good taste in music. Oh, just my whole life, all I wanted was some pretty girl with bangs and dark brown hair like Zooey Deschanel to trap me in an elevator and tell me that I have good taste in music. He's so happy. Oh, I have good taste in music? I'm so happy that you said that because my entire personality revolves around what kind of music I listen to. In fact, that's the only interesting thing about me. That is my one and only personality trait, is what kind of music I listen to. So, wow, thank you so much.
To die by your side is such
Oh my
a
God, she
heavenly
knows
way
a
to
song by
die.
the Smiths.
I love 'em.
I'm in love. Ugh. He should have just fucking immediately shut his own head in the elevator, decapitated himself with the elevator door. He's just officially smitten with his fucking messenger bag and his Mr. Rogers sweater. Ugh. Everything about this, awful. Just makes me want to fucking drink bleach. I don't even remember what it's about. All I know is that it's to blame for popularizing and spreading the contagion of hipster culture. I'm going to put it on the F tier, and also encouraging men to define themselves by their taste in music. Terrible, terrible. You know what? You're right. It is better than Saw. As insufferable as this movie is, I would still rather watch it than Saw. So I've moved it up to the C tier. I moved it up to C tier. There it is. Next up, we have a better film, a great film, which is Hot Rod.
What's up, little riders? Jump in the
Starring
public
Andy
pool tomorrow.
Samberg.
Tell your friends.
Andy Samberg as an aspiring stuntman in the suburbs of Vancouver, British Columbia, trying to impress Isla Fisher by becoming the next Evel Knievel. The problem is, he's a really bad stuntman. Really bad stuntman. A lot of cringe. It's a zany movie, and I don't usually like zany. Yeah, Cool Beans, that's a great scene. I don't usually like zany, but Hot Rod, I gotta say, pretty great. It's true. This is great, except for the fact that it caused every teenage boy to recite every fucking word. It's true. It is a little bit cringe, but it's also pretty great.
Cool beans.
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 Cool.
Beans, beans, beans,
Cool.
Beans.
beans.
I don't know why this is so funny, but it is. It's a very zany movie. Lots of non sequiturs like that. I think it's amazing and great, fantastic. I would say for other people, it might be Citizen Kane. It might be Casablanca. For me, it's Hot Rod that defines cinema in my book. I don't usually like nerdy, zany things, but I'm going to put Hot Rod on the S tier. Incredible film. Belongs on the S tier in my book. Another insufferable film that led a whole generation of young men to define themselves by their taste in music. Absolutely brutal. Garden State. You guys know this scene, right? Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. One of the most cringe scenes ever recorded. It's rough. After watching this, if you can sit through this, Watch People Die on Reddit, where you can go see someone boiled alive in an industrial accident, or the cartels cutting someone's leg off with a dull knife or something. Those videos will seem tame compared to how brutal this scene is right here.
What are you listening to?
The Shins. You know them?
No.
You gotta hear this one song. It'll change your life, I swear. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to, you gotta fill out your forms. Conundrum. Think you could, maybe listen while you could?
I can handle it.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta hear the Shins. It's gonna change your life. Now, you know what's bad? I would say Natalie Portman, one of the most attractive people to ever set foot on the planet. She's more than a babe. Natalie Portman is like a goddess. And yet I still want to throw her off a roof because of how insufferable her character's personality is in this movie. You know that the dialogue is cringe if it makes you hate one of the most attractive people to ever set foot on the planet. As a man, for it to come to that, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So I would say, again, this scene is more horrifying than watching the cartels boil someone alive. Another cornerstone, the soundtrack. I forget who's on the soundtrack, but it's all these fucking irritating indie bands. Another one of these things that really kicked off the insufferable 2000s indie hipster wave. I would put this one below 500 Days of Summer, I think, because as I recall, 500 Days of Summer is at least a little bit charming here and there. I'm going to put this on the F1. Unbearable. Well, how about a little bit of a palate cleanser? American Psycho, but you guys know the business card scene, right? One of the classics of American cinema. It turns out the original version of this business card scene is even better than the one in the original. You guys probably haven't seen this. This is the director's cut. Check out the director's cut of the business card scene.
Lying.
New card. What do you think?
Whoa. Very nice.
It's very cool, Bateman, but that's nothing. Look at this.
That is really nice.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
White. Impressive.
Some good details here. The white people shut up and Zay Zim. Very well done. It's actually a great movie. I've never read the book. People tell me the book is not as good. I don't know. But I will say Christian Bale's performance, iconic. But this is exactly what I was going to say. Too bad people make this their entire personality. It's one of those movies like Fight Club, where I feel like a lot of people kind of miss the point of it. And it kind of inspired a lot of people to do the, Sigma male grind set kind of thing where they didn't really understand the point of it. So that's a little bit disappointing. So for that reason, I will put American Psycho on the A tier, mostly only because the kind of people who are really into this movie are kind of insufferable. That's the only reason why. But I think it's a fine movie. I like it. Next up, a film that, more popular with the females, Legally Blonde, in which Elle Woods goes to Harvard to become a lawyer, and she's unfairly judged for being a pretty blonde girl who, you know, likes to dress nice. They judge her, and she finally proves herself as a more shrewd attorney than they may have guessed based on her appearance. And I will say, the movie really impossible to watch now. We watched it last week. I actually think it's pretty good. I don't think it's great, but I think it's pretty good. Certainly a big source of inspiration for Y2K fashion people. Yeah, it's definitely not as good as Mean Girls. I don't think it's great, but I think it's pretty good. And yeah, it holds up. A lot of great lines, some pretty iconic scenes. I would say this fits solidly on the B tier to me. Solidly on the B tier. That's what I think. Good movie, very influential, but I don't think it's fantastic. I think it's just pretty good. Okay, I think I have time for one more, and that film is, in my opinion, one of the greatest films of all time. Team America,
Gary,
World
I hate
Police.
To break it to you, but the world is on the brink of disaster.
America, fuck yeah. It's perfect. Terrorize this. Man, there was some really brutal shit in this movie. Do you guys remember this song? This is brutal. Fuck. Oh my god, if you haven't ever seen this scene, I am shocked that this was made. This is so absurd.
Everyone has AIDS. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS. And so this is the end of our story. And everyone is dead from AIDS. My father, AIDS. My sister, AIDS. My uncle and my cousin and her best friend, AIDS. The gays and the straights and the whites.
I feel so inspired.
Everyone has AIDS. My grandma and my doggo blue. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS.
Also, apparently, in the puppetry world, apparently this movie is considered like the crowning achievement of like puppetry as an art form. Yeah, it's the South Park guys. Apparently, it's like the best puppet movie ever made. Like, even if you don't care about the writing or whatever, apparently it's like this like ridiculously amazing hallmark achievement in puppetry, I guess. It's great. It's amazing. More relevant than ever, too. Maybe I'm just old. I don't know. But I think every line in this movie gets more and more funny every year. One of these movies, kind of like Idiocracy, where you're just like, man, they saw everything coming. Absolutely incredible. A true work of art. This is a film for the ages. This is my Casablanca. This is my Citizen Kane. This is my The Shining. And in my book, this movie is as good as it gets. It's on the S tier, and I'll hear nothing more. Incredible film. That does it for the 2000s tier list. Movies that are so bad they're good, or in the case of Garden State and Saw, just so bad they're bad. Either way, join us next time for our next edition of the movie tier list. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Movies are for children. Films are for art appreciators.